How well do you know Dauphin Island? There's always another story waiting just beneath the surface, and the growing Dauphin Island Diaries catalog explores everything from Fort Gaines and the island's ancient shell mounds to Sand Island Lighthouse, Alabama's artificial reefs, and the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. You'll also find full-length conversations with island personalities like Sherry Pope Moon, Anita Phillips, and Connie Roan, along with subject matter experts like Jason Herman and Mike Bunn, and new episodes and interviews are added every month. Follow Dauphin Island Diaries in your favorite podcast app, then explore the catalog and discover another story from the island, the bay, and the Gulf Coast. Now, let's get into the story. Hey there, this is Big John, and the interview you're about to hear was recorded on July 20th, 2026 during my main July research trip to Dauphin Island. My guest is Mendel Graeber, director of the Alabama Aquarium at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. And this wasn't your typical sit-down interview. Mendel took me on a walking tour through part of the aquarium, explaining how its exhibits are organized, the role the aquarium plays within the Sea Lab's larger mission, and how her own relationship with the Dauphin Island Sea Lab began when she was still in high school. You'll definitely hear some of the sounds of the aquarium and its visitors as we walk. So come along with us now as Mendel Graeber shows us around the Alabama Aquarium. One of the things I've already found out, one of the things that you guys deal with is that people think their ticket gets them across the street, and sorry, no, it's just for the aquarium.
Well, you know, we have a lot of people who come here, they know they're visiting the Alabama Aquarium, but they are also interested in seeing the Dauphin Island Sea Lab Research Lab.
Right.
And, you know, we try to always clarify that this is the public aquarium of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. You are at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab.
Right.
This is what is open to the public.
Right.
And here you can learn about some of the research going on across the street in the research labs. We added a program a couple of years ago to meet that demand for,
Sure.
you know, a peek into the research going on here. So we do have a research lab guided tour that we offer. It's on a scheduled basis,
Okay.
but, you know, depending on demand throughout the year, the demand kind of ebbs and flows. But in the
Sure.
summer, you know, we might do them once a week. And in, you know, the winter, we might do them once or twice a month.
Okay, definitely need to be watching the website for that information when I make it back down. I come down fairly frequently, but you know, one of the things I noticed, you have, I think, even where you can go out on the boat. Mm-hmm. And I would love to do that. I'm not going to be here. I'll be on my way back down on the 29th, but I will not be here.
Well, we will release more dates, so they're scheduled year round.
Sure,
and
gotcha.
So you may have taken a look at the dates that are already on this on
right.
the calendar.
It was on the screen out in the lobby. So one of the things that I kind of love to know about is the history. I mean, one of the interesting things that I think is pretty neat from my perspective. You pull up and there's this huge superstructure on the top of this building, and people don't understand, hey, this used to be part of the Air Force Base.
Right.
And that superstructure was where Radome was. And of course, all the offices across the street for the Sea Lab, that were, most of those, I know there's been some construction since then, but an awful lot of those were part of the Air Force Base as well. How did that come about, and how did you end up being able, I mean, to me, it was a remarkable situation with the government not tearing down useful things that normally seems to happen.
So I'll go back all the way kind of to the inception, before there was a Dauphin Island Sea Lab. In the early 1960s, there was a research professor at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa who was bringing his students down to the coast to get some hands-on experiences down here. And And there was also a University of Alabama Extension campus in Mobile.
Okay.
And so one of the professors there caught wind of this activity, these field trips, and wanted to get involved. And from there, it grew to the consortium that it is today of 21 member colleges and universities. But, you know, going back in the early 60s, you know, the young consortium was formed, and it was called the Marine Environmental Sciences Consortium, the MESC. And we are still the MESC. So organizationally, you know, we're the Marine Environmental Sciences Consortium. In the early 70s, they had a lab that was over in Battery, in the marshes over in Battery. And it was a barge that was kind of floated up into the marsh, you know, onto this kind of soft transition land, and it burned. And so then they started looking for a new physical home for the Marine Lab of the MESC. And right about the same time, the Air Force was decommissioning this, what is now our campus, was decommissioning this base. And so the consortium acquired it. It falls under the higher education budget for the state of Alabama. So the consortium acquired this old Air Force base that was being decommissioned. A lot of the resources stayed, as you mentioned. So the housing, we have dorms that are that were part of the Air Force base, our administration building, our the Marine Science Hall, as you mentioned, the old radar tower, which we now call the Radome, and it serves as our husbandry area for the aquarium. A couple of years ago, I had someone stop in, a visitor, but you know, he inquired at our admissions desk if there was someone he could talk to about his experience working here when he was in the Air Force. He worked in that building.
Okay.
And it was, you know, really interesting to hear his stories about working in the radar tower. I think that he never imagined when he was working there that it would one day
who could have?
You know, a husbandry building for the aquarium here.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know how anybody would anticipate that.
Right.
And the interesting thing too, from what I understand, of course, being an old IT guy and having watched the development of technology over the years, the what they had, you know, to achieve the computing power that they had, this place was full of servers and systems and all of that you probably have, you know, that much power in your laptop now. But
yeah, and a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an entire building that was dedicated to the computer system there.
Right.
And so, you know, again, the consortium served the colleges that were part of it. At this point, it's 21 member colleges and universities. But very early, they kind of made the decision, the organizers made the decision to bring high school students out. This was even back when we were in Battery.
Wow.
And so they kind of prioritized K-12 and then added teacher education and then subsequently public education.
Right.
Because the public had a lot of interest in what was happening here at the research lab. They might, you know, wander into the research buildings and, you know, just walk into labs. Sometimes there were, you know, sensitive experiments going on, and, you know, but we also wanted to respond to that interest. And so the aquarium was opened in 1998.
Okay.
So that was a response to the interest from the public, and also to capture some of the overflow from our education programs that, you know, where we have school groups who come here as well as the public. So we serve.
And I've been here many times and seen the school buses here, and I'm kind of jealous because, you know, growing up in Tennessee, I didn't have access to something like that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was already grown. I was in the Marine Corps in the reserves in Chattanooga when they built the Chattanooga Aquarium. I
Yep.
watched that being put up. It was right across the river from our reserve center. I would drive right by it every month, watch the work going up, and of course at the time I didn't know what was going to be there. It was like, that is some of the weirdest metalwork I've ever seen going in. What on earth are they building? Well, it kind of takes some different kind of stuff to put in an aquarium. And of course, there's a lot of really neat stuff in there. It's really big. The thing that I think is, as I recall, it's been several years since I've been to that one. But as I recall then, the main difference, this one is really geared toward education a lot more than display and entertainment. And that one I think was, it's certainly about education, but all the displays you've got here, the interpretive panels and all of that is really helpful. I was in here a few, I'll say 4 or 5 months ago, and I just took pictures of all the panels because I can use software to actually put all that into a document for my own benefit, and I'll be going back through that for when I do this episode, of course. But you have, like, for example, we're standing right here next to the freshwater tank. I see a couple of bluegill down on the bottom. Looks like you got a catfish hiding there in the log. Is that a box turtle or?
That one's a slider.
Okay. Couldn't tell from underneath at first, but.
Yeah, to affirm what you said, we are an educational facility. So we are a public aquarium at a research lab. And so we want to showcase the animals and ecosystems of our region. So that's another thing that's kind of unique about the aquarium. A lot of other aquariums, like the Tennessee Aquarium, they sort of have a broader
Yeah,
content.
they had sharks and stuff in there, which are obviously not native to Tennessee. But there was an awful lot of this kind of thing for the freshwater.
Yeah, Tennessee actually, they do a good job showcasing their own wildlife, but we kind of focus on that. So we want to really showcase our local ecosystems and animals, and also the research that's being done here at the lab, and just sort of the process and the practice of research. We want to kind of give people a window on that.
Well, one of the things that I think that is very unique about where you are here, you've got the bay, you've got the estuarine waters feeding the bay, you've got the Gulf, you've got the freshwater up above that. So you've got such a wide range of.
We also have the barrier island, the beach. So I first came here as a high school student and stayed for a month in our month-long high school course. And one of the things that was impressed upon me then was that this is a really unique place to be able to study a lot of different ecosystems and a lot of diversity. So as you mentioned, we're just a quick trip, from the Mobile-Tensaw River Delta. We're located right here on Mobile Bay, the Mobile Bay estuary, and the Gulf. Like, you could stand in places on Dauphin Island and see both, as well as the barrier islands, so the dunes and maritime forest and the beach and the salt marshes. So that's another kind of interesting point for our field excursions that we do with students and with college students, with K-12 students, with the public, is from this point right here on the campus of the Sea Lab. Within minutes we can be in many of these different ecosystems.
So let's go back and talk about. You did this as a high school student. Let's talk about the K-12 program. Those kids are coming in, and they're riding in on a school bus. I know I was out on East Beach trying to view and shoot pictures of the sunset, and here comes a horde of kids straight out the back, and they're out having a large time on the beach, and And I was like, man, well, how is it that these guys get to do this? And so, let's talk about that program, because that's not only is that really, I mean, my daughter, she wanted to be a marine biologist and work with dolphins. I mean, of course, a lot of little girls, that's the way it is. But these kids actually get exposed to that.
Yeah, the program is called the Discovery Hall programs, and its 50th anniversary was last year, so it's been around for a long time. It's one of the most robust K-12 education programs at any marine lab in the United States. So it's a year-round program. During the academic year, most of the programs are field trip programs. They also do some like ROV competitions, regional competitions. They do a lot of outreach from here into the schools of Alabama, especially schools that cannot afford to transport students down here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just Alabama schools. There's a lot of schools from Tennessee.
No kidding.
Yeah, I've taught schools from New York. There are kids that come from Kentucky, from Colorado. They come from all over.
All right, so to that point, let's say that, I've got a number of friends in education in Tennessee. One of them is the director of schools in Manchester, Tennessee. One is over special education in Tullahoma, Tennessee. Let's say they said, we want to get a group up and take to the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. What would that entail?
Well, on our end, they would need to, contact our registrar and find dates that would fit their schedule, available dates. And then, some schools, as you mentioned, they come on school buses. Some schools, especially from farther away, do charter buses. Some of them bring an entire grade. They structure it so that those kids look forward to that field trip, when they get to 7th grade or something. Some of them do it on, they have a smaller group. Our group size max is 35. So if you brought your entire grade, they'd be divided into groups here on campus.
I see.
So some schools prefer instead to bring, maybe a class or 35 kids, and they might do it on first come first served basis, or they might do it with a merit system. They have a number of different classes. They're mostly half-day classes that the students can take, so depending on how long they're here, they can fill that time with classes they can choose from. And we also have dorms on campus.
Right.
So
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
I know you got the dorms, so
Yeah.
you talked about you were here like a month.
Yeah.
If one small island can hold this many stories, just imagine what's waiting across an entire state. This is Big John Summers, and when I'm not exploring Dauphin Island, Mobile Bay, and the Gulf Coast, I'm traveling Tennessee in search of the people, places, and events that shaped the volunteer state. On the Tennessee History Nerd, you'll hear stories ranging from the Scopes monkey trial and the Battle of Athens to the Sultana disaster, the lost state of Franklin, forgotten communities, historic battlefields, and much more. You'll hear full-length conversations with historians, authors, local experts, and people preserving Tennessee's history. For the same boots-on-the-ground storytelling you enjoy here, search for the Tennessee History Nerd and follow it in your favorite podcast app. And now, let's get back to the story. So, how does one make it into that program, and what's involved with that?
So the high school program is, the high school course happens in the summertime, and it is limited to 30 students. And in fact, they sometimes have international students for that program.
Okay.
I've had students from England, from Egypt, from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
In fact, I think a couple of years ago, they had 3 international students in one cohort. And so they would apply. That's an application process.
Okay.
And so they have to have had, I believe this is the structure, unless the rules have changed, but I believe it's still that they have to have had biology. So
Okay.
usually students take that freshman year. So then these students would mostly be entering 10th, 11th, and 12th graders.
Gotcha.
And they would submit an application and then come to the Sea Lab for a month.
So,
About a third of their time is spent in the classroom, a third in the field, and a third in the lab. So
Okay.
they can get credit, like a unit of high school science credit for the course, but it's, we just have resources that most high schools don't have.
Sure.
And so they can, get exposure to the researchers and in the research labs, to a lot of marine technology, again, getting into those ecosystems. So it's a pretty special program.
right, and it sounds like it's quite immersive.
It's very immersive. It's very impactful. So I did the program. We have two of the faculty in the Discovery Hall programs also went through that
No kidding.
program. We have alumni who are now research scientists that we keep in touch with and follow their careers.
I have no idea if she was in that program, but I got to talk to Jackie Wilson, who owns Bama Bay Oysters, and I know she used to be a part of this, and she was very excited about the stuff down here. And I also interviewed Jason Herman,
Yeah.
and boy, I tell you what, that was he is just a wealth of knowledge about the oysters and the oyster program. So that was really helpful, and that's the kind of thing I'm trying to do is. I know I don't know the stuff. It's okay that I don't know the stuff. I just make sure I find the people who do know the stuff.
And here we're very enthusiastic about sharing with
right.
with people, especially if people want to learn, we like to share.
Right. And so well, let me ask you this, going back to the programs we're talking about. If people want to know more about that, and if they're concerned about cost, what's that look like?
They can find more information about the programs, program descriptions, eventually dates. The dates for next summer's programs probably haven't been announced yet, but those usually get announced either at the end of the year, and sometimes they structure it so that you can gift a camp for Christmas kind of thing.
Okay.
So it'll probably be a few months before they announce the dates for next summer. But you can find more information about all the different programs, descriptions, dates on our website.
And those are all going to have different price points. So
the cost of the high school program, I would say I can understand where some people might be concerned about whether they can afford that. But I will say that program is it is low cost for what's offered. When I did it, I was given scholarships by some of my local civic organizations, and all they asked in return was that I go and I talk. Yep, I go and speak to the organization about my experience.
And that's fair, and it's good. It's good experience for the student when to do that. So
there are also a few scholarships.
Okay.
So there are scholarships, available through the lab that they can put students in touch with.
Okay.
I think there's some science fair scholarships. We have a researcher scholarship.
So here's something that was just starting to be a thing when I was getting out of high school: advanced placement for college credit. Do you offer programs like that?
The students get, they can get credit for the course. Most high schools will offer a unit of credit for the course. I'm not aware whether some of the schools will offer advanced placement credit. I can say, though, that it is a very rigorous course.
Well, and that's based on what I was hearing from you. It was like this would be perfect for a biology advanced placement course, if that was something that were offered. I mean, I know advanced placement English, advanced placement history, but I've not heard of like advanced placement biology. I'm not saying it's not there. I just hadn't heard of it. So I just wondered if that was something that maybe...
Yeah, I'm not aware of an advanced placement arrangement for that program. I could check and get back to you.
Okay, that'd be great if you wanted to just shoot me an email. You have my email address. So, would you like to show me some of the different exhibits that we can kind of talk through as we're walking, and we can kind of do a walkie-talkie kind of thing here?
Let's start back over here then. So again, the Alabama Aquarium was designed. It was originally named the Estuarium, and it was designed to showcase the 4 major coastal ecosystems of Alabama. And within each of those major coastal ecosystems, we have ecosystems within ecosystems. So it is sort of organized around a pathway through these ecosystems from north to south: the Mobile-Tensaw River Delta, the Mobile Bay Estuary, the barrier island of Dauphin Island, and then the northern Gulf. And so as you walk through the building, you follow that path. Now we have added a couple of eddies. So we have the Rays of the Bay touch tank now.
Okay.
And we also have Windows to the Sea, which will be renovated, and opening next year. It will continue the transect from the northern Gulf outward to the oceanic zone, and then a descent to the bottom of the Gulf. So we'll be featuring, the oceanic zone and the deep Gulf.
Okay, that'll be really cool.
So we start here in the lobby under our mosasaur model. The mosasaurs were the dominant predators of the Cretaceous seas. And this is a life-size model. It's 20 feet long of a particular species of mosasaur. But they got up to 60 feet long. A different species got 60 feet long.
That's quite a bit larger. So.
Uh-huh.
And it looks like this one's about to eat a turtle.
There's an iconic image from the Alabama Department of Natural History, I believe, generated that image, and it was put on postcards, and like everybody in this field has seen that image of a mosasaur pursuing a sea turtle.
Okay.
So
that's meant to pay homage to that.
Uh-huh. And so in here, we want to start just with a nod to the upstream, the rivers and streams and the land that's connected to Mobile Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Mobile Bay watershed, and it covers most of the state of Alabama, parts of Mississippi, Georgia, and even a little bit of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. All of that flows to Mobile Bay.
And one of the interesting things, I think, and I don't really see it necessarily represented here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I see the Tennessee River up there, I see the lakes on the Tennessee River, but it's not included in your zone, and I know through the Tentom waterway, it feeds right into Mobile Bay now.
Well, yeah, there's the connection that was sort of cut off, and so, this is the watershed.
The natural watershed.
As it stands,
yeah.
Naturally, yeah. And then we also want to make sure people understand the connection between the aquarium and the Dauphin Island Sea Lab, that this is, the public aquarium of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. So we kind of feature that in the introduction, but it's also sort of infused throughout the aquarium. And then kind of the introduction to the conceptual flow.
So I was able to see from a distance
mm-hmm.
this going on
mm-hmm.
just this weekend, because this picture here, if you're listening, and we're at basically the first little alcove as you go into the aquarium, and there's an image on an interpretive panel here that says that fisheries scientists collect data during the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo, which was this past weekend. So, and they have, you can see it. It's not open to the public to go in. You can view it from a distance, but they're very clear. No videography, no photography of that area. It is a research facility at the rodeo that you guys work in partnership with them. Yes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting history there. So, decades ago, Dr. Bob Shipp was a fisheries scientist here at the lab and at the University of South Alabama. And he started building relationships with the local fishers and with the Mobile JCs who host
Right.
the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo, and they created this partnership that has grown and is going strong today, where the researchers go to the rodeo and they are able to do an incredible amount of sampling in just one weekend. So there are a lot of fishermen who enter, and there's a lot of collection happening, and they return a lot of samples to the scientists there, and the scientists can take tissue samples, they can take otoliths, which are the ear stones of fish. They can get a lot of information from those. Sometimes they might take stomach contents, and they can still return the fish to the fishermen,
Right.
if they want the fillets or if they want
Right.
trophies from the fish, for whatever is allowable. And so
I know while I was there was a 700-pound shark that was harvested.
And so they get a tremendous amount of data, and they also offer interpretation. So the public, in exchange, can they can get information about all these different fish. They have what they call the ice box, where they put a lot of different samples in the ice box, and so they'll tell people about those different fish. They will tell people about the research that they're doing, so people get sort of that inside look into the research. And the researchers also serve as judges for the rodeo.
Okay.
If there are any categories that would require an opinion, like most unusual fish for the categories.
Gotcha.
So it's a mutually beneficial partnership.
Right. Well, one of the things that I'm hoping is that next year, because I didn't know this year, of course, the podcast is new. It's been going on about 3-4 months. I will be able to get like a media pass. I didn't know to do that this year. And of course, I want to be able to work with you guys more on some things as well. I mean, I don't anticipate this being the last time I want to reach out to you guys for information, and there'll be some more, perhaps more focused topics to talk about at some point. But I really want to be able to get in there and see some of those things, get permission in advance to be able to video and do photography and share some of that stuff. And I think the big thing that they're trying to do is protect from, how to put this without being ugly about it, from activism. And I have an interest in sharing, not in activism. I don't want the doors closed to me. I want to be able to continue to be able to get in. I don't want to rub people the wrong way, because I want to have continued access. So. The podcast lets me tell you the story, but what if you could come along and see the places where that story happened? For just 99 cents a month, Dauphin Island Diaries Facebook subscribers receive exclusive videos and bonus content from my travels around the island, Mobile Bay, and the Gulf Coast. You'll get a closer look at historic locations, local attractions, interviews, and other material that takes you beyond what you hear in the podcast. Your subscription also helps to support the travel, research, and fieldwork that make Dauphin Island Diaries possible. Visit the Dauphin Island Diaries page on Facebook, tap the subscribe button, and come explore with me. And now, let's get back to the story.
Yeah, that's part of the reason they kind of screen,
Sure.
The media.
Right.
So then we're walking into the Mobile Delta. We did have a major renovation of all of the signage and interpretation in 2023.
And there used to be, looks like a triangular shaped thing here. Yeah.
And so, we had done piecemeal updates and additions between 1998 and 2023, but this was the first time we did sort of a wholesale,
Okay.
cohesive update of of the.
So what drives when you do that kind of thing? How do you make the decision, hey, we need to update this stuff? I mean, I'm going to assume that some of the information is, I won't say timeless, but it's certainly long lasting, whereas others would be perhaps a little more time sensitive.
Well, so you're right. Some of it would be sort of perennial, and some of it would be sort of, we want to present research, and so that research would then not be current research. It would be research from 20 years ago. We also wanted to update the graphics because we have a lot of natural light in here, and the graphics faded, And also, at the time, we didn't really have the ability to incorporate these large-scale photographs. So we wanted to add photographs that sort of add to the sense of immersion here, the sense of place, to add that context. We wanted to represent some additional biodiversity, like mammals and birds and insects that we don't, and a lot of the plants that we don't have on exhibit here. Now, we do have in our live exhibits around 175 different species.
Okay.
But that's a fraction of the enormous biodiversity that we have in these ecosystems. So we wanted to add context to that. So we wanted to add more research features.
Right.
So there were things that we wanted to add to the story.
I do want to interrupt just for a moment. For those of you who are listening to this right now, I want to make it very clear, we are actually in the museum. We are walking around through the aquarium itself, and there are some pretty excited children in here. And you're hearing that excitement in the background. I wanted to make clear why that is going on. So we've got creepy crawly critters over here. We've seen tanks and of the aquarium here. And I mean, even so, I see something from home over there with the black bear. I mean, that's kind of a thing. We've had those wandering around in the woods not far from where I'm at now. And I'm in Middle Tennessee, which, we hadn't seen those in a while. But it's not just, the biodiversity you're talking about here is not just aquatic.
Right.
And I think that's interesting as well, that we're not just talking about fish or fish and reptiles. We're talking about mammals as well.
We're talking about mammals, insects, plant diversity. So it's certainly not just focused on the aquatics, what can be found in the rivers and streams. This is about the Mobile-Tensaw Delta. So that a lot of that is water, but you also have lowland forest that may flood sometimes and be exposed at other times, and you've got upland forest, you have bogs. So the bogs are they're sort of damp, but it's certainly not flowing river or stream.
Right.
And we want to showcase all of that.
Okay. And the Mobile-Tensaw Delta, of course, I mean, it's a broad range. It covers, by the time you get, you're talking about the entire upper area above the bay here, right? And coming down even, it looks like you're not talking about like Fowl River, Dog River on down, but certainly anything that feeds
into the
Mobile,
northern,
the Blakely side, all of that. So that's the first section that we're in of the aquarium, and as you mentioned, there are four primary zones that you're putting emphasis on.
So right, the four major coastal ecosystems. So this is Mobile Bay, and it is an estuary, and the delta itself experiences a lot of fluctuation between saltwater and freshwater. So this is an interesting place where you could even have, say, bull sharks and alligators mingling at times. So there are times when you've got a lot more river flow, and there's more dominant freshwater push down towards Mobile Bay, down towards the lower delta, and less dominant tidal flow. So this is more fresh, and it tends to fluctuate seasonally. You'll even see like the plant communities kind of migrate seasonally. So you can see, more freshwater dominance at some times. And then at other times, when you've got less river flow and you have more tidal dominance, you see this zone right here kind
creep
of
upward,
trend more salt water. Yeah.
So one of the things that I remember in talking with Jason, and we were talking specifically about, of course, the oyster population in that conversation, but what you were just talking about with the freshwater flow versus the saltwater flow is a good bit of that is you were pointing out in the map over here all of the watershed that feeds into this. I mean, you've got all kinds of dams that they open up to control flooding in North Alabama that, a few days later, you're seeing all that a few days later as a giant, what I would call a bolus, just being dumped into the bay.
Yeah, so I'd say that the primary driver is rain, and yes, they might be opening floodgates, but it's a little different than, say, in the Atchafalaya over in Louisiana, where they, open, they open the floodgates, and really it's a more dramatic change that is maybe less, like seasonal rainfall. So here, when we get a lot of rain, we get that bolus of water. And then if there's a period of drought, over the state of Alabama, then, we get less freshwater inflow. And again, that is from the whole watershed, not just what's right here over the Mobile-Tensaw River Delta.
Okay.
And also keep in mind, our position is like right north central Gulf of Mexico. So this is one of the rainiest places in the United States. So you've got warm, moist air masses moving north from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's by no means a closed system. That water can move out of this system, but we do end up with a lot of rain over the state from these warm, moist air masses moving north from the Gulf of Mexico. It rains, and then a lot of that water is going to flow right back down to the Mobile Bay and to the Gulf. Another thing that I'd like to point out is our kind of research and researcher features. So this is about Dr. E.O. Wilson. We think of him, we claim him as a native son. He spent a lot of his boyhood in Mobile, and he loved the Mobile Delta. He would ride his bike out on the causeway between Mobile and Baldwin counties, and kind of leave his bike and head into the Delta exploring. He also, as a child, hooked himself in the eye with a fish hook while he was fishing, and he damaged his eyesight, and it caused him to turn his attention more to small things, and he became a preeminent entomologist. And even as a child, when he was 13, he made the first discovery of the fire ant in the United States. And
I'm having trouble with those in Tennessee now, and they came in through Mobile.
They came in likely in ballast dirt.
Okay.
And it was E.O. Wilson as a child who discovered it.
And of course, you've got the display here of the fire ant mound. So yeah,
it's a cast aluminum, so it was poured into a mound, so an actual representation of the tunnels and cavities in the mound. And we also have a number of research features that are about particular projects that have been done here at the lab. So we have a few of those, and these are meant to be changed periodically. So
this is kind of like what you were talking about with as new research comes along, you don't want 20-year-old research up there, you want something that's current.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
So another thing I like to point out to people, because these are kind of a favorite, the little baby alligators, and we have these on loan from the Alligator Alley over in Baldwin County. And when they outgrow the tank, they will go back to Alligator Alley, and they have been gracious enough to swap out with us. But I think this is a very interesting tidbit, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but mother alligators take care of their eggs and their babies. And so that's unusual among reptiles. Most reptiles don't provide any care. They'll lay their eggs and then leave them. But mother alligators will make a nest of vegetation. As that vegetation decomposes, it produces heat. Some people might be familiar with that concept, maybe with a compost heap. As it decomposes, it
Or
produces
silage.
heat. So it incubates the eggs, and she will stick around and protect those eggs. And even after the babies hatch, they will stay around their mother for a year, sometimes up to 3 years, and the mother will protect those babies. By the time they're about 3 years old, they're not going to have very many natural predators, except maybe other alligators. But
Because they're big enough to be the big boy on the block.
yeah, they won't be that big at 3, but bigger than most native
predators.
animals would target.
Yeah. So one of the, I don't think that they're native to this area, but one of the things that I was surprised to find out is that there are also in America crocodiles. Those are over in Florida, I believe. But
There are some crocodiles that are native to the U.S., but only in the very southern tip of Florida.
okay,
And we don't have any in this area.
okay, and that was why I was asking, because I wasn't aware of them in this area. But like I say, I don't know. That's why I asked the experts. So
We do have a lot of non-native species, including nutria.
Pyramids.
Yeah, which I think the recovery of alligators has maybe helped mitigate the problems with nutria.
Meaning,
Alligators will eat nutria.
so I'm not familiar with nutria.
Nutria they kind of look like really large muskrats or small beavers, but they don't have the beaver tail. They have more like a rat-like tail or a muskrat-like tail. But they get to be about 20 pounds.
Okay.
So they are native to South America. And
Gotcha.
here, they don't have many predators.
I see.
At that size, an alligator is maybe the only predator that's going to eat a full-grown nutria.
Okay.
And because our alligator populations were impacted, they didn't have as many natural predators as they might otherwise have had to keep their population growth in check, the nutrias. But alligator populations have really rebounded. And I think we're seeing a concurrent drop in the nutria population.
Has there been any? I know one of the things I see all the time in the news with the Everglades is a problem with talking about invasive species with like the pythons. Is there any of that in this area?
We don't have pythons. We don't have iguanas.
Okay.
We do have a lot of invasive species. Some that people might be familiar with are kudzu,
Oh, yeah.
vine that ate the South.
Yeah, and that was brought in by the TVA.
There are apple snails.
Okay.
They're large, like fist-sized snails.
Okay.
You can see one over there in that tank.
Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Fire ants, as we mentioned. So there are a number of invasive species, and they are impacting native ecosystems, native animals. But we don't have those particular invasives, and they're probably checked by winter, by temperature. So, they hopefully will, not adapt
Right.
and,
Right.
and start encroaching.
Right. Okay. Some places you visit other places become part of who you are. If Dauphin Island, Mobile Bay, and the Gulf Coast have become part of your story, you can show that connection with official Dauphin Island Diaries merchandise from Summers Media Enterprises. From shirts, hats, and mugs to even bumper stickers, there's a way to carry a little piece of the island wherever you go and help other people who love this special place recognize a fellow island enthusiast. Every purchase also helps support the research, travel, and storytelling behind Dauphin Island Diaries. Follow the merchandise link in this episode's description, find your favorite design, and let folks know that the island's stories matter to you. And now, let's get back to the story.
So we're sort of transitioning here into the Mobile Bay Gallery.
Okay. Gotcha.
But we could take a detour and go out and see the rays.
Okay. Okay, so
this is our Rays of the Bay touch tank. We have a few different species of ray in here. These that sort of school near the surface is a cownose ray. And we can see the mullet over here grazing on the algae.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bony fish, not a ray, but they are herbivores.
Mm-hmm.
And they help to keep the grass mode in here. We have an Atlantic stingray right there resting on the bottom. The cownose rays are a little unusual among rays because they swim a lot and they school. They will rest on the bottom, and other rays will swim through the water. But you can kind of see a difference in that behavior where we've got some rays that are kind of resting on the bottom, half buried, and then the cownose rays swimming. We also have a couple of bonnethead sharks.
Okay.
Bonnetheads are in the hammerhead family.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small species of shark. These are full grown.
Okay.
Only get to about 4 feet long.
And the intent is that people can actually reach in and...
Yeah, we allow two-finger gentle touch. We don't want people to grab any of the animals, especially for the bonnethead sharks. That can be
They are sharks.
Stressful, and it can inhibit their breathing. They're what we call ram ventilators. They need to swim to breathe, and if visitors kind of grabbed them and checked their forward movement, it would be particularly stressful for them because it affects their ability to breathe.
It's strange seeing all the fish that are feeding on the stuff on the side of the pool, but they're laying flat on their side in some cases. It looks almost like they're in distress or something, but no, they're just eating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with this tank outside, in the bright sunshine, it's a good place for algae it's a good habitat for algae, good conditions. And we did find that the algae, the growth on the sides has a nice softening effect for the rays as they swim around. But, just to keep it, as I sort of made a joke about them mowing the lawn, they just keep it a little so the algae is not so long.
Right.
Those fish, the mullet, are the ones that people might be familiar with jumping out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the ones
you see those out in the bay doing that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or just out here in the off the pier.
Mm-hmm. This tank is heated and cooled by a geothermal system. So, there are places where people have their homes heated with geothermal.
Mm-hmm.
So the water that's in the tank is not going into the ground, but the temperature is regulated with water that goes
Gotcha.
down into the ground.
Gotcha. Kind of a separate system that.
So it's temperature regulation. So in the summer, it's cooling by going down into the ground. In the winter, it's warming going down.
It's keeping it a constant temperature because the ground is maintaining a constant temperature. So, and now we're in the bay section.
Yeah. So we call that our Rays of the Bay touch tank. And now we're walking into our Mobile Bay gallery. So Mobile Bay is an estuary. It's a place where freshwater and saltwater meet and mix. So in here, this is a representation of the pier footing of the Middle Bay Lighthouse.
Gotcha. That's neat. I don't think I recognized that when I was here before, that was what the intent was.
And these fish here, the spade fish, that's the symbol of the lab. So if you ever see our logo, it's a spade fish. So we've got some flounders in here. Flounders are interesting. They're flat fish. When they hatch, they're actually oriented like fish that swim this way with a vertical orientation. Their bodies are, their body form. Their mouth opens that way. They have fins on either side, eyes on either side of that vertically oriented body form. And when they're a couple of weeks old, one of their eyes migrates over to the other side of their face, and they turn over, and they're swimming on their sides, essentially. So for the rest of their lives, they swim on their sides. So you can see the mouth, the way the mouth opens. And it's hard to see these guys because they're really good at camouflage.
Yes,
They'll change colors to match the bottom.
The chameleon of the sea.
Yeah, so it's a little hard to make observations, but in fact, they're so good at camouflage. You watch them for a while, so you can see that one's a little darker. If big fish swim over them and cast shadows over them, they will even change in response to that.
Yeah, you've got a small one right under there, and not seeing others right now, but that is fascinating. I did not realize that. That's really neat. So you were talking about plant life. Here you've got cypress.
Yeah, this was buried. So quick burial can be an efficient way of preservation. So this one was buried and uncovered in Mississippi Sound. It's a disc from a cypress tree. Another thing that we have featured right here is the ship channel. So this channel that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dredges between Dauphin Island and Fort Morgan Peninsula, from the Gulf all the way up to the Delta. And so that is dredged constantly, and so they find places to deposit that dredge spoil. One of the places is this man-made island.
Gaillard Island.
And before
I think I said that right.
was formed, there was a dentist in Mobile who proposed, they were building this ship channel. And so this Dr. Gaillard proposed that dredged material could be used to build an island that would serve as a rookery. And there was a big debate surrounding that, whether it would actually hold, whether that would hold as an island. The ecologists and the biologists were debating whether it would be beneficial or whether it would have adverse effects. But it went forward, that project went forward, and it did hold, and it did end up creating an island. And in the early 1980s, two of the research scientists from the Dauphin Island Sea Lab went out to Gaillard Island looking for turtles. They went to see if they could find any turtles out there, and they saw a bulldozer operator, pushing sediment around, somebody who worked for the Army Corps of Engineers, and they saw birds dive bombing this bulldozer, and they didn't suppose that the bulldozer operator recognized the significance of that, but they were confident that it meant there was a rookery nearby, an area of bird nests. And so they went to see what was happening, and they discovered nesting brown pelicans, which at the time were endangered. Yeah. And so they, reported this because it's an endangered species to the Fish and Wildlife Service, because they're the ones who manage the endangered species. Mm-hmm. And so, in the time since then, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the National Fish and Wildlife Service have kind of come to a collaborative agreement with that dredge spoil. They still add dredge material, but they manage the places where it's added and the times of year, because the rookery is there in the spring and early summer, and then the rest of the year the birds aren't nesting there. But it has been instrumental in the recovery of the brown pelican.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid in the late 70s and we would go visit Sarasota, Florida. It was a big deal to see a brown pelican. Mm-hmm. And around here now they're absolutely everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I love watching them. They're so graceful. I love watching them in flight.
This is another one of our visitor favorites over here, the seahorses.
Ah.
So they're pretty well camouflaged.
Mm-hmm. I see some of them, yeah.
They have kind of prehensile tails that they can hold on to the seagrasses. Mm-hmm. And then this one's a male, and you can tell because it has a pouch that kind of resembles a kangaroo pouch. And so some people know this species because, you might hear that it's the only male that gives birth. It is a male that kind of resembles a mammalian pregnancy because the male carries the eggs in a pouch on his belly, essentially. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of other male animals carry eggs and carry babies, including catfish. There's a frog species that'll carry eggs like embedded on its back. Mm-hmm. So there are other instances in nature of the fathers carrying the eggs, carrying the babies. But this one, I'd say, is probably the one that most resembles a pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes people will hear that this is the only male that has a baby. But yeah, the mother will put the eggs in the male's pouch, and then he'll carry those eggs until the eggs hatch, and then they come out of the pouch. And another thing you can observe about them is they have these little snouts that look like straws and actually function like straws. So they eat little small things that, like, including amphipods. They look like a cross between a shrimp and a roly-poly. They're predators, but their prey is, very small, yeah. And so they don't really chew it. They just slurp it up. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And so they're good ambush predators.
Is this a shrimp in the background here?
Yeah. A lot of people don't get to see live shrimp, so we like to showcase them. Some people might see boiled shrimp where they see the entire, head to tail. But a lot of people only ever see shrimp, like the shrimp tail cooked, mm-hmm. Fried. So sometimes people are quite surprised to see live shrimp.
Right.
This is a blue crab. It's another favorite, to eat around here. They are delicious. But, they can also be challenging to showcase. So, there are animals that we really want to showcase here because people have a connection to them. They are familiar with them to some degree, whether that's, because they see them on their plate or because they see them on the beach, and they, that's one of the animals they're familiar with, they can connect with. But some of those are a little challenging to show. Like shrimp are often buried, mm-hmm. so they'll bury in the sand. So they come out when they're fed, but, it can be difficult to showcase them in a way people can see
that's the first time I remember. I don't remember seeing him in there last time. I think he was hidden when I was here before.
And then blue crabs are, we're not the only ones who think they're delicious. If we tried to put them in a tank with bigger fish, they would likely get eaten. But they're also, pretty opportunistic feeders. They'll kind mm-hmm.
of
eat anything they can grab. And so it can be difficult to find appropriate tank mates for them as well.
Okay.
But we like to have them on exhibit.
Sure.
Here we have a feature of our marine mammal program, our marine mammal research program. So a little information about the research and some interesting specimens that they have collected through the years of the research program. They're on loan to us here. We also like to feature technology. As you mentioned, technological advancements have allowed us to do research that would never have been possible without those advancements. So here we have a little feature on tagging. So, there are little physical tags that go into a fish's fin, and they rely on that animal being recaptured and the person who catches them to report. We also have acoustic tags, which are, embedded in the animal. A little surgical procedure inserts them into the animal, and when they get close to a device that picks up that signal, it can report back the the pattern of movement. And they have an ID associated with them, so you know what animal is where.
And then so this particular animal was tagged on thus and such date and thus and such place, and oh my goodness, look at where they are now.
Yeah, so you can track their movement in that way if it's picked up. And then we also have a satellite tag there. So that satellite tags would require the animal to surface so that the signal can, the tag can communicate with the satellite system. And so they're not
So you're obviously not putting those on an anglerfish.
Right, yeah. So that would be selected for animals that surface regularly, like dolphins, sea turtles, some kinds of sharks. And then over here, you mentioned how you've enjoyed learning about oysters. This is a feature on oysters themselves and also oyster research.
This is being able to see this now and visualize, because one of the things that Jason was talking about was the development of oyster reefs and how they build on, the substrate created by the previous generations and all of that. And it's really interesting. And of course, the understanding of how the shell dredging was so. Now, I don't think they understood. I don't know if they cared, but I don't think they understood either. They might have cared, just didn't know that there was a tremendous negative impact in all of that, too.
Well, in some places, they do that dredging for oysters. Here in Alabama, they tong.
Right, no, I'm talking about the shell dredging that they did, where they actually went in and just scooped up the substrate.
Oh, who is this and when?
This was like in the 40s. It was in like Mississippi Sound and Mobile Bay. They did that for construction material.
Oh, okay. Not as a practice for food.
No.
But but there are places where they still dredge for to harvest oysters.
Mississippi, they do that.
Yeah.
Is what Jason told me, was that Mississippi they did. But yeah, here it's tonging. Or nipping. They've used the smaller tongs for the nipping, but and one of the neat things too, and you can speak to this far better than I can, of course, but the growth in this area of aquaculture, of farms creating this. Yeah,
so it's kind of taken off in the last 15 years. It was started here. The industry was kind of lifted by an extension researcher, Dr. Bill Walton, who moved here from New England, and that the creation of that new industry required a lot of support. So, they were providing that kind of support with research and kind of the different kinds of baskets that, and basket systems that the potential farmers could use. And also with hatching oysters. and having a nursery, so that you know they then provided this new industry with baby oysters to populate their baskets, and also kind of market research. And you think about getting a loan to do a business like that, but this is it's an unfamiliar industry in this area, and getting insurance
and
on
getting
this,
permissions, getting all the
getting the state
all the
leases,
licensing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things that Jason was talking about, all the hoops they have to jump through and how much it is.
So there was kind of a tremendous amount of support that was needed initially to get this off the ground. And now there are several oyster farms in Alabama doing
There's
great
like
business.
15 or 18 in this area. So I know we're getting close to time, and I want to be respectful of your time. One of the things that I wanted to ask was, do you guys work in conjunction with like the National Estuary Program? Do you work with like the Mobile Baykeepers, those kinds of organizations?
The National Estuaries Program is affiliated. We have an official affiliation between the Dauphin Island Sea Lab and the NEP, Mobile Bay NEP. Baykeeper is an organization in Mobile, in the Mobile area, they are an advocacy group, and they bring a lot of awareness to different environmental issues in the area. But the Sea Lab is an academic research institution, and so we don't do advocacy. It's not our role in this.
Okay.
In this.
I just wondered if some of the research you do plays into their advocacy and vice versa.
I think that hopefully the research that's done here. One of the things that I think people have kind of a misconception about is that at a research lab there might be a lot of rehabilitation, like bringing sea turtles or dolphins here for rehabilitation, or that we do a lot of restoration, like big restoration projects, or conservation projects. And that's not really the role of research science. So I like to make that point for people. So, if we are involved in restoration projects, it is in a research capacity. So we might be researching how particular aspects of a restoration project, how settlement was. Say if the goal was to create new habitat, then we would research whether a lot of animals are then settling in that area, or maybe the idea is, well, did it withstand the currents and actually grow and thrive there? And if not, what might be changed on a similar project in the future. So hopefully it would inform restoration practices.
Right. And that's kind of why I was asking, because I could see, you guys are just identifying and reporting. They take that and go, well, that's something we need to address. That's something, that's different from what we would have seen historically or what have you. And so I could see where you guys wouldn't necessarily be the advocate group, but that you could potentially work hand in glove with advocacy groups to.
They can certainly, and hopefully do use research to inform, their kind of push to make changes. Also, another example would be in fisheries management.
Okay.
So the marine fisheries researchers here, they don't make regulations, fishing regulations, but they provide information to fisheries managers, the state and the federal regulators about the population, or about the sort of reproductive patterns. They are not reproducing until they are this size or this age, and in order to create a sustainable fishery, we need to protect this period of reproductivity, so that we're not harvesting before they can lay eggs.
Sure.
So the research should, ideally inform. They should be using that information to inform management, to inform advocacy, to inform, best restoration practices.
Okay. Thank you so much. I know it's getting close. I want to give you time to get to your next meeting. I so appreciate it. I would love to do this again sometime because we didn't get to go through the whole thing. We only got through two of the stations, so I'd love to come back and do the other two because actually where I was really fascinated when I was here was some of the stuff actually in the Gulf with the reefs, and I did an episode on artificial reefs. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but
I'm just going to point out, if you want to peek in here, we incorporated it into our children's play space too.
I was in here for that when I came. But yeah, what I found interesting and from a historical standpoint was, the use of the Ghost Fleet, some of them. Army tanks.
Yeah. That
was bizarre to me, and I picture in my mind archaeologists, finding those 1,000 years from now and thinking that Alabama repelled a horde of.
That's funny. I never thought of that, but yeah, I like that. I like that story.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I do thank you for this time, for the information, and for just taking the time to kind of walk me through all
It's
this.
Certainly a lot. So
it is.
I heard you say you might do different features like the Discovery Hall programs, or just maybe one on just the history of the lab, or
Right.
the aquarium itself, or the research programs. So.
Well, I think that when we're talking about what's on Dauphin Island, it's part of the history, obviously, and especially the recent history. But it's just a tremendous asset, I think, to the community, to the state, to the region. And I didn't even realize. I knew it was an Alabama thing. I didn't know that Tennessee kids come down here. I would be excited to say, hey, guess what? You can go down there and do that. So.
Yeah, it's certainly not. We don't. Most of the students who come down here are from Alabama, but we certainly have a lot of students from other parts of the country, and especially the southeast region. So we actually have a good number of students who come down from Tennessee.
Okay. Well, I know that's something I'll share with, like I say, with my friends who are in education back there, because I'm sure they'll be interested to know that. So as I've reviewed this, I'm just reminded again of just exactly how interesting this was to me and how much I enjoyed this interview. My thanks again to Mendel Graeber, director of the Alabama Aquarium, for taking the time to show me around and share not only the story of the aquarium, but also the educational and research mission of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. And as you heard, we only made it through two of the aquarium's 4 major ecosystem galleries. So perhaps someday we'll have the opportunity to return and finish the tour. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to listen to episode 9 of Dauphin Island Diaries, where we take a closer look at the history and the work of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab and the Alabama Aquarium. And please take a moment to follow us on Facebook or subscribe to Dauphin Island Diaries, and like and share this interview with someone else who loves Dauphin Island, the Alabama Gulf Coast, or the remarkable environment surrounding Mobile Bay. Until next time, I'm Big John Summers. Thanks for coming along with us today. The best stories don't end when the episode does. They start conversations. If today's episode interested you, surprised you, or brought back a memory of your own, I'd love to hear from you. Use the Send Fan Mail link in the episode description or join the conversation on the Dauphin Island Diaries Facebook page. Send me your questions, share your memories, or tell me about a Gulf Coast story you think deserves to be told. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't keep it to yourself. Before you close your podcast app, share it with one person who loves Dauphin Island, Mobile Bay, or Gulf Coast history, and invite them to join us for the next story. Your voice can help preserve these stories and introduce them to someone new.